All right, everyone. Welcome to Digital Conversations. I am your host, Billy Bateman, and today I am joined by Nicole Picaro. Nicole, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Billy. It's nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm excited for this conversation about content and how we can create really great content and optimize it. But for people that don't know Nicole, I'll just give you a really brief intro, and then Nicole can give you the details. But Nicole is an associate director of creative with a strong emphasis on digital strategy and demand generation at Captivate. She brings 10 years of experience in design, marketing strategy, and a proven track record of revenue growth. And she's also just really fun to talk to. So we're glad to have you on the show today. And give everyone, that's high level, but tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do and about Captivate.
Sure. I live in Chicago, and I've been with Captivate for about 5 or 6 years now. And so I help out a lot with the creative, coming up with mock ideas for, the sales dev department of marketing. But I'm also getting into demand and lead generation, which has been the last year. And it's been a lot of fun, trying to find our audience. How do we get in front of them? And just trying to, coming up with ideas, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and going for that. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share some ideas with you guys. Hopefully it inspires you. And I'm just learning just as much as you are. So I really appreciate you having me here on.
Yeah, no, this should be fun. So, let's just hop into it a little bit. The last year
Right?
been pretty tough on marketers.
Yeah.
The normal
Yeah.
plays, some continue to work, but a lot of them just we had to rethink things. So,
Yeah.
how have you incorporated demand gen strategies at Captivate over the last year?
Sure. So one of the initiatives we implemented at Captivate was thought leadership. And that idea was born again, when pivot was the key word to say.
Yeah.
That was one of our pivot ideas, was to really expand our office building to residential. So to give you some background of what that means is Captivate is known for screens and elevators. So imagine you're, in a high rise and you go into an elevator and someone's with you next to you, and it's kind of awkward. There could be like weird sounds, weird eye contact. And that's where the born and the birth of Captivate was how can we make and alleviate a little bit of that awkwardness, that 15-second, that 20-second awkwardness for you to look at a screen. And so thoughtful content. What is that? What is on that screen? It's thoughtful content. It's ad space. So it's brands allowing them to get to their audience that are riding the elevators. And then it's also, there's a portal for the building to be able to communicate to their tenants. So let's say there's a bathroom out on the third floor or there's an event. Whoever's riding that elevator will then get to know who that building is. Also, if there's any events, whether you're a tenant or just a guest in that building. So it's a great communication tool, and that's what Captivate is. But imagine now you're in an office building and the pandemic happens, and now we have to expand into the residential. And so we've been at Captivate and doing this for 25 years. So we have a ground base of 25 years of audience, and now we have to expand into a new space as residential, pun intended. And we don't know that audience. How do we
Yeah.
attract that audience? How do we make them know who we are, but also trust us? It's like in the residential space, they already have those brands that they know and to call on that are, on that vendor list. How do we get on that vendor list? And the way that we wanted to be a part of that is to create content that was relevant to this new set of audience that we're just learning about, and saying, hey, we know what we're talking about. We have 25 years of experience. We have amazing, intelligent people at our company who can create this content for you that would be beneficial to your life, to be, what are your pain points? Let's talk about them. And then getting in front of them, through these blog posts, through these thoughtful content series. So then when they do have an issue, they think of Captivate as their solution. And so by doing that, we wanted to just start with thought leadership.
Awesome, awesome. So starting with thought leadership, trying to get into the new market, I love it. It's a lot of businesses do it, and
Yeah,
I think if it's done well, like it's a
totally.
great way to get in there. Um, so how do you go about figuring out what your audience wants and finding out what to write about? Like where did you guys start?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I mean, I would say two starting points is one, listen, and the second one is research. So, like I said, we have sales reps who are pretty familiar with the commercial real estate, and we're getting into residential. So it's really listening to those people who are on the ground, on the ground, drumming up business, the lead gen specialist. What are your conversations like? What are the trends? What are our audience, what are they interested in? Because we don't have that as marketers. You can assume, but that's not always the best, protocol when it comes to creating content or just any campaign. You kind of got to know your audience. And also, working with the customer success, it's great that they love our product, but why? And what works, but also what doesn't. It's just as important to know what doesn't work as to what works. Um, and then also, like I said, the sales reps. So what are those tough conversations that you're having? How can then we create content that really solves their problems? And it's that listening part rather than thinking, oh, I know what they want and assuming. So once you have all of your notes and your listening, you do your research. So that could be from doing Google AdWords, okay, so we can have conversions to Google Ads, which is great. So we have a keyword. If you have a conversion, we know that people are searching for that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Google Trends. How do you compare and contrast two different type of keywords? Another one is just doing a manual search of just searching on your own and saying, okay, well, if I was them, what would I be searching and what pops up? Are those guideline, blog posts? Are they lists? Are they how to's? So it's just again figuring out fact finding, and then also one tool that I love that I'd like to highlight is the SEMrush keyword tool. So SEMrush is an SEM and SEO platform. It has an incredible amount of information that could help you guide you to figure out what your audience is searching for online, which has been super helpful for me. So yeah, I would just say listen and research and, having those platforms that can really help you guide you. Because to be honest, Billy, like we were kind of a deer in headlights, not knowing and making assumptions. You just gotta take a step back, um, listen, and then also figure out what people are searching for, not making assumptions.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned like, writing how-to guides or lists. I mean, I'd imagine you probably tried a bunch of different things, but where did you guys start with what type of content were you guys writing?
So I would say in the first, it's the how-tos, a
Okay.
lot of it had to do, with talking about the pandemic too, like how to communicate with your residents, and also talking about, how the pandemic has affected our tenants and residents through mental health and how our screens can help with that. And just the mental health of meaning like if if you can't leave your building, if you're in a residential space, it could really have an effect. How can we provide a sense of communication and community to these residents? And that's where that pain point and that solution of starting that blog point, that's where we started, and then it evolved into, okay, well, let's see what people are researching. People are researching like, what is a digital display? What is a
Yeah.
screen? Why would I need one? Those real questions that people are like actually searching. And so in SEMrush, if let's say you have a keyword, you can see in the magic tool part of the platform, you can see the volume, which then really breaks up your assumptions. So let's say you're like, oh, I know that people are asking like, how do I communicate with my tenants? But they're not online at least,
Yeah.
so or if they are asking, maybe it's not about what the direction that we're looking for. So then how do we reposition it? And that's where SEMrush really helps give the guideline of here's the volume of what people are searching for to your keyword that you're testing out. And again, it's test and trial and error.
Yeah.
So it's just been
So as you're
fun.
as you're going through and optimizing your blog post, sounds like SEMrush, that's a big part of what you're doing. We use it. I think it's a great
Yeah.
tool. High level, like once you've published an article, are you going back and optimizing that to try and get as much traction as possible?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We actually optimize it before the article is published. And that's really the goal, is to come up with these, again, you're listening to the sales rep to what the trends are, you're looking on social media, you're seeing what people are interested in. Then you come back to the drawing board and you go to SEMrush and you say, okay, here's a 2 or 3 ideas that I have. Let's see what people are actually searching for and how then we can incorporate Captivate. And some blog posts, Billy, aren't about Captivate. We're doing an interview
Mhm.
series where we're now bringing on vendors that possibly could help our audience, that has nothing to do with Captivate or digital screens. So
Yeah.
before publishing any posts, we always will bring it into SEMrush to do the keyword search, to make sure that we're not like cannibalizing any keywords. So let's say we have one about digital screens, but we don't want another blog post about digital screens. We just want to make sure that they work hand in hand, but they're not competing with each other when it comes to ranking on Google. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot of great insight that SEMrush has to offer that we take into account before even talking to the person that we're interviewing, or we take an account before we talk to a real estate specialist at Captivate, because it's kind of like the chicken before the cart, or cart before the horse before the cart. You know that phrase. The
Yeah.
chicken
Yeah.
and the
For
egg, the egg
sure.
and chicken. It's like for us, we want to make sure that we have some direction before we even start down the process of a blog post, and then we'll write about it. And then we can go into SEMrush and, they can give us ideas as to here's how to make your content more readable. Here's some links, here's some extra keywords that are relevant to what you're writing about. So it's really helpful. Again, it's if you have a team of people doing this, it really makes that level field of, okay, here's the direction of what we're doing, and then everyone's on board, because there's so much information out there about what to do, and a lot of the
Yeah.
information conflict. It's like, oh well, I read this article. Well, no, you read that article, and they're saying 2 different things. So to me, it's really nice to have that one platform where it's like, okay, this is what we're saying. We're gonna test out a few of the recommendations and see what happens. So it's really helped us. It's benefited our organic page views. It's doubled. Also, again, it's just that brand awareness. We want to be in front of those people as often as possible, of making people aware that we are now in that residential space.
I love it. I love it. So as you're going through, it's been a long time since I've personally done SEO, but as you're using these tools, are you finding that, we all think like, okay, this is how we're going to outline and organize the article and the keywords that we should focus on to get the
Yeah.
most out of this. But when you go back, you put it through, you have it analyzed. How often do the tools come back and say, hey, your assumptions are kind of wrong, and this is what
Yeah.
you need to do?
Yeah. It's as simple as spelling, right? So if you think of the word multifamily, it could either be
Yeah,
spelled one word or two with the hyphen. And well, I use a hyphen, shouldn't my audience? And it's that breaking those assumptions down as to no, there's more volume with one word. People don't want to take
interesting.
the time to write the hyphen. So that's like the colloquialisms, the terms. Do you keep that in there? What are people are searching for, to just make sure that when they are quickly typing, there's no hyphen, which makes a big
Yeah.
difference in coming up in Google search.
Interesting. I love it. I love it. And what others? Do you have any other stories? We said that's really interesting because we have a similar thing sometimes with
Yeah.
one of our products is a chatbot. Is chatbots is it
Okay.
one word or two words? You know,
Yep.
I don't know
Yeah.
what we're doing right now from an SEO standpoint, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's supposed to be one word is the proper way to do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if more people, when they're searching, go two words. So that's an
Mhm.
interesting point. Any other stories?
Yeah, so we just created a blog post recently with one of our sales reps who was a property manager, and as you know, property managers are our audience, and so
Yeah,
she was writing a story about how to manage your time, and she kept saying residents, residents, manage your time to give the best experience to your residents,
yeah,
and when I type in residence, I was getting a little bit of different, it's the school, it's like two different schools of thoughts. It's like you speak to it, but are people typing? Are they searching for that word? And so I
yeah,
put residence in the SEMrush tool and I got the craziest results. Like Resident Evil. Are you familiar with that? I had to Google what that meant. Or I think I have
yeah,
a list,
yeah. I mean,
like Resident Evil Village. So a lot of the keywords that we talk to, in business is just so different from what the high volume keywords or people are searching for.
yeah,
So it was just interesting. So with that, and also resident meaning like inpatient resident or, not necessarily a resident of a multifamily building. And that's where we were looking to target, So we just switched our strategy from resident to tenant. Because when I
yeah,
put in tenant, that was more so of condo tenants,
yeah,
how to make tenants happy, how to communicate to tenants. So it's just like that was the line. And again, it's just like breaking those assumptions. And then, I mean, are you familiar with Resident Evil? I don't even know what that is.
Ye Actually, I'm of the age that, Resident Evil was, like, a pretty big video game back when I was probably, I wanna say, middle school, high school.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
my friends played Resident Evil, I remember. It's like a zombie game, if I remember right. And then I
Oh,
actually
okay.
spent some time in commercial real estate, so to me, I know
Did
commercial
you?
real estate speak is it's tenant, it's not resident, you know? So that would make sense
Yes,
to me.
yes, for commercial real estate. Yeah, so commercial real estate, it is tenants, but then for residential, what is it? Do you call
Yeah, I
is
think
it
it all
yes.
depends on where you are, but for the big
Yep,
multifamily, it's generally they talk about them as tenants, at least internally, when
yeah,
the managers are talking.
mhm.
So
Yeah, no, thank you for that insight. Like, I love hearing that with your background, I didn't realize that you had a background in that too, so that's really cool. I think when I was a kid, it was more like Mario Kart and Mortal Kombat. I would just sneak playing it when my brother wasn't around.
Oh yeah. We had Mortal Kombat when I was really young. Funny story is my mom did not want us to have that game. I bought it from a kid at
Oh, okay.
school in the, play at recess. I was like, I
Yeah.
can scrounge
You
up
bought it from a
10 bucks.
kid at recess?
Yeah. And then we
Nice.
hid it from my mom and would only play when she was gone. But we had
Oh
a
my
younger
gosh.
brother who's about like 7 years younger than me, who wasn't in school, figured out where we were hiding the game because he wanted to play, got the game out while we were at school, started playing, and we were in a world of trouble when my brother and I got home
Oh,
from school
sure.
that day. But Mortal
That's
Kombat, still a great
hilarious.
video game, still a great game. So, all right,
Yeah.
not to throw us off too
Well,
much,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good
So,
stories.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have to look up
So,
Resident Evil.
yeah, look it up. I don't know if I ever played it. I just knew what it was.
Got
But
it.
any other insights before we wrap up that you would like to share with somebody who's decided, hey, we're really going to get started on this content strategy. Maybe they've been haphazardly doing it just to do something or haven't been doing anything. What's your one or two pieces of
Sure.
advice for anyone who's decided we're actually going to really do this well?
Yeah, so be patient with yourself. I would say, obviously you have to figure out your goals. So are your goals to just like where your KPIs are at? Is it like higher funnel? Is it just awareness? Or like informative blog posts? Or like what are the goals of your blog post? And also if you're generating leads, that takes time. So I would just give it to, 6 month, 3 to 6 months to see some actual uptick, whether that's, you're tracking your page views or your engagement, your social media engagement, linking back to your blog post. It's you just have to test, rinse and repeat, and then also see what works and what doesn't. And another thing is with blogs is that you have to make sure it's kind of on the same cadence, so then your audience knows when to kind of expect it. So we just do
Yeah.
ours once a month, just because we started pretty new at it, and then also just other projects and bandwidth. But then when we do have more time, we add a few blog posts within that month, but we still are having that one cadence of once a month to keep it consistent.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Okay, Nicole, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your
Yeah,
insights. If anyone wants
of
to reach out to
course.
you and continue the conversation, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, my email is Nicole. I'm sorry, it's N Picaro. So NPECARO at captivate.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, we'll
Oh,
wrap it up and we'll chat later, Nicole.
awesome. Thanks, Billy. I appreciate your time.